Hello and welcome. Many of you who are longtime subscribers to my channel are going to be a little surprised about this video since this is not the typical type video that I make. This is something that's very unusual for me. However, you do know that I am a very honest person and I always fight for the truth, and that's why you respect me and that's why you've been longtime subscribers. This is something completely different from my typical video. And the reason I have been making it is that over the last 6 months, there has been an absolute epidemic of people posting flat Earth videos. Yep, you heard me. The Earth is flat. I know right here in this video, it looks pretty round, don't it? Okay, I'm making this video specifically to debunk this one claim, but I am going to get into a lot of their other claims. Okay. Now, this claim, they say that the Earth is flat, but that this is being taken through a fisheye lens, and they say that. Where is this one? They say that this is proof that it's flat because this is a normal lens taken from inside and shows a flat surface. So, let's examine that, okay? At 50,000 feet, you can perceive a curve to the Earth, sort of, barely, because you have peripheral vision. You need a 60-degree wide angle to barely tell that there's a curve to the Earth. This is taken from 130,000 feet or so. It's way the hell up there. It's as high as any balloon's gone. It's, pretty damn close to space. They say that this right here proves the Earth is flat because there is a flat line right here. So let's look at this for a second, okay? We'll take that away, and what I did here, I'll take that away, is I cut out, kind of roughly, I didn't do a real good job, but I cut out the cockpit, the view from outside the cockpit. And then I took this curved Earth, the very same curve that they say, is a fisheye lens, and I put that inside the cockpit. And what's it look like? It looks exactly like that. I mean, the colors are different, but it's still the same straight line. The reason the color is different is exposure. They're taking exposure readings from everywhere. This is darker in here, so it's making the Earth outside look much, much brighter because that's overexposed. This is a little underexposed, so it just makes this look very, very bright. That's all. It's simple exposure from outside. It's more blue because you're, as you see from here, you're getting an exposure from mostly the Earth and a little bit from the cockpit, hardly any from space out here, because it's using what's called matrix exposure, which takes a average exposure from a matrix, might be slightly more center weighted and everything, but this is overexposed here. Simple photography, basically. This is underexposed. You cannot see anything inside the cockpit because it's dark. The guy's sitting right there. You can see his foot. That's all you can see. You cannot see anything in there because that's so underexposed. Back here, you have the fairly normal exposure out there, but you still have the flat Earth, or what appears to be a flat Earth, but is in reality just a curve. It's At this altitude, you need about a 35, 40, 45-degree angle to see a relatively, as you can see, defined curve. That's a very well-defined curve. But here you have 5 degrees, maybe a little bit more, but it's a very narrow angle. So you cannot see any curvature there. It is the exact same as this, same lack of curvature, because you are looking at it through a very, very narrow range. Now, these same people have taken a video shot from the MiG-29 that was very high up, about as high as a MiG can fly, which is about 110,000 feet. And that's very close to as high as this was taken from. So at 110,000 feet, the MiG was shooting out the front of the cockpit, and you would see an obvious curvature to the earth. And then it would turn and continue a shot. It would shoot out the side, and the tail and the wing would block half of the view, and it would look like a flat horizon. But out, from the front, out the top, anywhere that is unobstructed, you can obviously see a curve. You look at an obstructed view, you can't. They chopped this video up and said, look here, they're using a fisheye lens, you can see a curve. Look here, they're using a normal lens, you can't see a curve. And it was total bullshit. It was one continuous shot, panning back and forth in the video that they chopped all up, and it just looked like there was no curve when it was an obstructed view and only showing a 25 or so degree angle, not even, because you need a wide angle to see the curvature at that altitude. So I want to get into, we've obviously proven that this is an obvious, this is an obvious deception. Okay, maybe they don't know it's so obvious, but it is. Let's get into the history of the flat Earth and where that began. Back in 1990, a video was put out as part of a lesson plan for children in critical thinking. The basic idea was for them to not blindly accept everything they saw at face value and to critically think about it and scrutinize it and decide what's real and what isn't. It started off normal enough, but then started introducing wilder and wilder concepts, showing herds of cattle in Antarctica, showing, the Earth is flat, the lack of gravity, a dome over the Earth, all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And then there was a worksheet that went with the video that you were supposed to fill out and say, well, at what point did you stop believing what you were seeing and start thinking this doesn't make any sense? Were you able to continue, critically think through the video and decide what was real and what wasn't? And so forth. Anyways, Eric Dubay, who is the head of the Flat Earth Society, he also goes by many different names. He is a Mason and a wannabe cult leader. He claims that the Masons are the head of, this whole great deception, even though he is a Mason himself. He took this video that was meant as, not quite a joke, but a way of, showing you ridiculous things that people might say and that people might take at, face value and can be used to manipulate them. And what he did was he used it to manipulate people. He used that as proof that the Earth is flat, and He did exactly what the instructor set out to say you can do, which was manipulate the masses into believing anything you want them to believe. And he did it quite well. Well, I wouldn't say quite well because he doesn't make any sense at all. He's just a complete moron. But a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, are believing the stuff that he's saying, and that's what really is scary. Um, I will get more into Eric today in a little bit more and go into a lot of the flat Earth talking points and you know how stupid they are. But first, I wanted to get into why been the sudden exurgence in this in the last 6 months. Um, about 6 months ago, NASA started releasing evidence that they have found 4,500 exoplanets, which are planets in orbit around suns or other stars in our solar system. I mean, not in our solar system, of course, in our galaxy, in a very small fragment of our galaxy. And out of these 4,500 exoplanets, which are mostly like gas giants, there are 400 that are rocky planets or Earth-like planets. Some of them are tidally locked, so one side is molten because it's constantly facing the sun, and the other side is frozen because it's constantly away from the sun. So they're obviously uninhabitable. Um, but there is at least one that is very Earth-like, contains water, contains atmosphere, and has a very high potential for containing life. It's a something like 11 light years. I mean, it's far enough away that it would take us like 100,000 years to reach it or something. So I mean, it's not like we're ever going to be able to get there anytime soon and find out what is actually there. But it is very much Earth-like, and I think a lot. And there was a video that I found recently where a flat earther had called into a talk show and starts going through all the talking points, and the host is luckily he was bald, or he would have pulled out all his hair. He was trying to understand this guy, and he just had this look on his face like, oh my god, this can't be real. This guy's a moron. Even though he was being nice to him in a way. But it was funny to watch. Anyways, he got the guy to admit that why he felt so strongly that the flat Earth had to be flat, and what he said was, well, it has to be flat or else we're insignificant. We're just a tiny speck on a tiny speck that's spinning around a speck, in a great big universe, and that makes us not special. So that is basically what it is. Like in the last 6 months, with all these exoplanets being found, and the fact that there are other planets in other solar systems, in other star systems in our own galaxy, meaning that there are probably billions of other planets around other billions of stars and other star systems spread out all over the universe. There's a very, very, very high chance that thousands of them contain like advanced life forms, maybe more advanced than us. So they are threatened by the fact that we might not be so special. So they create this universe where the Earth is the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us with no force like gravity to explain what would be attracting it or making it revolve around us. Only their own egos could possibly account for that. They claim that, since gravity doesn't exist, it's either density, which obviously this video disproves that. Like when he jumps out of the capsule, he is above 99% of the Earth's atmosphere. And it is the the density is 1% of what it is near the surface. And so he should, if it was density holding people to the ground, he should fall very, very slowly until he gets into the dense air, and then he accelerates. The opposite happens. Instead, he hits Mach 2, almost. I mean, he came very close to twice the speed of sound, and then he hit the dense air and slowed down because of air resistance, and slowed down to terminal velocity, which is about 200 miles per hour. So the absolute opposite happened of what density would cause. Another theory is that it's electromagnetic energy that keeps people on the Earth. Even though magnets don't stick to people, magnets don't stick to air, magnets don't stick to water, magnets don't stick to dirt. It makes no sense. They claim it's some other type of magnetism that has not been discovered, and it's just nonsense. Or they claim it's like the iron in our blood, even though there's no iron in the air, there's no iron in the water. I mean, maybe there is a little bit, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just grasping at straws. So that completely disproves the fact that it's not density and gravity. It is not density or electromagnetism. It is gravity that keeps us to the Earth. But some of the other claims is that that we are not spinning, we are not moving, and you can see that clearly. If you go in the southern hemisphere, the stars spin in one direction around the South Pole, and the other direction in the northern hemisphere around the North Pole. This is you cannot fake that. That is a fact. You can see with your own eyes. In the south, the moon's upside down compared to the way it is in the north. It's because it's a globe. They're on the bottom. We're on the top. At least from each other's standpoints. Not to make it sound like the southern hemisphere is below us or anything like that. That's just the way it's normally viewed, as north being up, south being down. But that's just semantics. Anyways, another claim that they make is that Antarctica surrounds the entire world. It's a 9,000-mile coast that somehow is stretched out to be 78,000 miles. They claim that there's an ice wall that keeps the oceans from falling over the edge, or most say it's not an ice wall but a dome that covers the entire planet. Okay, you see how ridiculous this is getting. Don't worry, it's going to get funnier. Okay, it's going to get more ridiculous. This is comedy, folks. This is like they take this as real, but it is pretty funny shit. All right, the dome is protected by an army made up of every army on Earth. Bitter enemies, hand in hand, out there guarding this dome, even though not a single person in the world has ever met anybody who served in this army. And there is no budget at all on any books that pays for such an army. They claim that you cannot go beyond 60 degrees south, even though there are scientists that operate beyond 70 degrees south. There is a science station that is somewhere between 80 and 90 degrees south. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's close to the South Pole. There is a visitor center of sorts, a dome, at the South Pole. There is two airfields, one at the Science Center, one at the South Pole itself. There are 78,000 people who visit the South Pole. Any flat earther can get off their ass and book a trip to the South Pole There are cruises that circumnavigate the South Pole so they can see there is no military, there is no dome, and that it does not take months to go around the world. It's just a continent smaller than South America. Um, they can book on land trips that will take you to the South Pole, that will take you to the Science Center, that will take you along the routes taken by all of the famous expeditions, that will take you to their campsites and all that kind of crap. And there is at least one group that lets you custom design a trip that will let you go anywhere at all in Antarctica you want. Excuse me. And that can be as much as a 6 month long trip. I mean, it's not cheap, but if these flat earthers want to prove this crap, put up the money. Do a fundraiser. There's 100,000 of you. Everybody put in $1, and you can send 10 people. It's not that hard. If you want the truth, find it, but you're going to find out that you're wrong. Anyways, there is 5,000 jobs in Antarctica posted every year. There are 2 post offices, one at the Science Center, one at that's known as the Penguin Post Office, which is on the peninsula. There are 2 airfields, one at the Science Center, one at the South Pole itself. There is a few ships operate, they're science ships that operate to collect krill and plankton and count, now they take the Antarctic Treaty as a sign that you cannot go there. The Antarctic Treaty states that it is guidelines for conduct when visiting the South Pole. The guidelines can be summed up with 3 sentences. Don't make a mess, don't get in the way, and don't die. Basically, it says, don't disturb the wildlife. Don't get close enough to dangerous wildlife to end up being killed. Don't go wandering off so you'll fall through a crevasse and die. Don't climb on, glaciers and fall and die. And don't get in the way of the scientists. There are a couple of temporary restricted zones. They are not prohibited zones. They are restricted zones, which require special conduct when entering into these zones. And that's because they are very environmentally sensitive zones that you have to be very careful about making a mess and about disturbing the animals and all that kind of stuff. These are the only restrictions to going to the South Pole and Antarctica. Anybody can go and go spend months there. In fact, you can get a job there. In fact, I've known people who have gotten jobs there. I've known people who flew the planes that fly into there, and I've known people who have vacationed there. You can just do it. If you want to do it, do it. What was I saying? Anyways, as far as this dome goes, some claim that it is a clear dome or the firmament from the Bible or whatnot, whatever that means, which nobody understands what that means. They say it's impenetrable. Meteors go through it, but they claim that the meteors are actually pieces of the dome. They say the dome is clear, but the meteors are black. Who knows? Some say that the dome isn't clear and that the universe is painted onto it or projected onto it with LED lights. This is a good one. You try to explain gravity, since they say gravity doesn't exist. Yes, how do tides work? And they're like, well, that's the wind and evaporation. I was like, okay, then why is it in perfect timing with the moon? It's the moon's pull causing gravity. And they're like, it can't be the moon because the moon's a hologram. Okay, the moon's a hologram. Has it always been a hologram? I mean, it's been painted on painted by cavemen on walls, cave walls. So has it been a hologram projector that's been in existence for millions of years and never had a glitch, never once broke down? I mean, these are the ridiculous things that these people think and believe without question. They don't doubt that these things are facts. It's crazy. And they claim that, if you believe in science, if you believe, in NASA, that you're just believing what you're told to believe. Yet they believe this crap that they're told to believe. Okay, so let's get back to Eric Dubay. Okay, he has a video out called 200 Proofs That the Earth is Flat. In it, he has fraud after fraud after fraud after miscalculations, obvious deceptions. He will say that you can see this city from this city and it's 70 miles away, but when you measure it on the map, it's 13 miles away. He'll say this photo was taken from like this harbor, at 20 feet, and you can see 70 miles. But you can clearly see that you are at least 200 feet above cranes that themselves are 200 feet tall, and what he claims is 70 miles away is only 20 miles away. He severely exaggerates and uses absolute wrong figures over and over and over, and it's a clear attempt at complete deception and lies. Not one of his figures adds up. We have one of the people on debunked.com has gone through and debunked most of his 200 proofs, because once you debunk 3 or 4 of them, you've debunked about 20 of them, because they're all sort of repetitive. So he did skip around, but if you look at the ones that were debunked, they pretty much debunk all of them. Anyways, Eric Dubay is also, he claims that satellites don't exist, and if satellites did exist, all satellite dishes would point straight up, as if every house in the world has its own private satellite parked directly above it. He claims that, because satellite dishes are all pointed at a 45-degree angle, they are pointing at the nearest tower. Now, that tower would be above the clouds. The clouds block the signal whenever it rains. It doesn't make any sense. There are no towers that reach above the clouds. And of course, you can look where the satellite dish is pointing and see there is no tower there. You can see satellites with your naked eye, so he claims that there are solar-powered drones flying around 24/7 with cartoon drawings of satellites and the ISS taped to the bottom of them. This is his explanation for why you can see satellites with your naked eye. Brilliant, huh? I mean, it is comedy, but these people take this shit serious. Don't ask me why, but they do. Another claim that he makes is that, since satellites don't exist, GPS is just wires in the ground. Even in places, even in the middle of the ocean, even in places that have been unexplored for 300 years, even in, which that would not explain how GPS can tell your altitude. You know, only a satellite triangulation system would be able to tell your altitude. You know, the, the arguments just don't make any sense. Let me see, what other arguments can I get into? There are so many that are just completely insane. Perspective. Perspective and view range, limited view range. One second here. So I needed a drink. Perspective. They claim that the law of perspective explains why you can only see so far. And they cite there was an experiment back in the 1800s, I guess it was, that used three sticks and measured the angles of the shadows, and they used that to quite accurately actually, determine what the circumference of the Earth was. Now, flat earthers calculated that if the Earth was flattened out, those shadows would be exactly the same if they simply moved the sun to 3,000 miles away instead of 94 million miles away and made it only 32 miles across. Okay, so there you go. They just moved the sun. It's that simple. That makes the flat Earth make sense. All right, so the sun now is at 3,000 miles away, 32 miles across, and it moves 6,000 miles in either direction before it goes out of view range without getting significantly smaller. And if that were the case, it would never go below 26 degrees above the horizon, which obviously we see it go below the horizon around the curve. You know, but that's beside the point. They say it just disappears, goes out of visual range. So let's look at that. 32 miles across. That's about the size of New York City. Okay. 6,000 miles in the distance, or even 3,000 miles, 3,000 miles straight up. The distance from Europe to the center of America, this was somewhere in Spain, I think it was, to the center of America is 4,970 miles. So let's say the closest coast from Europe to the closest coast of America, say like New York City, is about 3,000 miles, a little under. It's about 2,700, I guess. I'm not sure exactly, but that's approximately the distance between Europe and North America. So if you can see a 32-mile wide sun at 3,000 miles when it's straight up, and at 6,000 miles when it's, you know, off in the distance, why can't you see New York City, let alone the 4,000-mile coastline of North and South America? Does that make sense? They are closer than the sun is at noon, and many, 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 many times bigger, yet you can't see them. Of course, this proves one thing. What's it prove? There you go. It's a curve. Yep, you got it. Silly, huh? Okay. Now, see some of the other claims that they make. Did I mention the stars projected on the dome? And I did mention the hologram moon. We have never been to space. Never. Not once. You know, the 970 some missions that have gone deep into space never happened. They all blast off. You see them blast off. They go off on a curve and go into the ocean. Now, one thing about that is When you blast off, if you're trying to get into orbit, you can't go straight up. You're not going to get into orbit. You have to go up and curve and go into orbit because you need to reach orbital velocity, escape velocity, and then orbital velocity. So you need to be moving around the Earth to go into orbit. So of course, every rocket's going to go up and on a curve and try to get into orbital velocity. That's common sense. You do not see them go up and come down and land in the ocean. And why would they spend hundreds of millions of dollars to shoot a rocket up and have it fall into the ocean just to, deceive you about a curve? Yep, that's it. We're wasting billions and billions and billions of tax dollars to hide the fact that the Earth is curved. Makes sense, right? Yep. To these guys, anyways. They claim that propulsion cannot happen in space. Newton's third law of motion. Uh, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Gas comes out the back, pushes the ship forward. Simple. But they claim that gas has to push against something. Now, the arguments will go on and on. This will be a long video if I go through them all. The same people that claim that there is nothing in space to push against also believe in an ether, which is something in space to push against. Brilliant. It makes no sense, but yeah, they argue both sides. They don't even try to make sense. The ether is a long ago abandoned concept. That light required a substance for light to travel through. For decades, they tried to figure out the properties of the ether, whether it was solid, whether it was liquid, whether it was flowing, whether it was stationary or moving, and every attempt to define it failed because it would always not account for different things like the parallax of stars. Light would be deflected coming through moving ether. Multiple problems. Every single problem defining the ether failed. So it was abandoned with Einstein's theory of relativity and light being both particle and wave, and not requiring a medium to travel through. And that clearly worked just fine. And then once we went up into space, we determined that there, of course, is no ether. There is no anything. It's just empty space, vacuum, absence of anything. Not completely. I mean, there are particles floating around, but there is no ether. So the point is that these people will say there's an ether. They'll say that there's a vacuum. They just go back and forth, back and forth. They, say there's a dome. They say that we can get through the dome. We can't go through the dome. They claim that back in the 50s there was an operation. I want to say Starfish, Starfire. I can't remember the exact name of it. They sent up a number of nuclear weapons to see if they could dissipate the inner Van Allen belt by adding radiation to it that would overwhelm it and make it dissipate. It temporarily made it more radioactive, but that subsided. It was a failure, but they claimed that what they were trying to do was blow up the dome. The theory is the dome keeps the atmosphere in. Why would we try to blow up the dome? it's moronic. Let me see some more flat Earth nonsense. Perspective, and just getting the perspective and vanishing point. They claim that when a ship goes off the horizon, it's actually perspective that you can no longer see it because it doesn't go out. It goes out of visual range, and if you take a telescope, that you can see it again, but you can't. They never test it, but they claim it. You cannot see it again by looking through a telescope because it's beyond the horizon. Um, However, I have a video of a container ship sailing down the Suez Canal. Um, if you look at the video, the ship angles slightly inwards towards the bow, and that is perspective. The sides of the canal angle in slightly towards the horizon. That is perspective. But it does not come to a point at the horizon. There is a nice flat uh, end to the water. The water is not significantly narrower than it is at the ship end. It's a little narrower, about like 15% narrower, not even 10% narrower. It does narrow somewhat. That's, perspective in action. Things get narrower as they go farther away, but it's a nice flat water at the horizon. And as it's a time-lapse video going end to end from the canal, and as they're progressing down the canal, you're constantly seeing new um, scenery coming into view. And that is because it's all coming up over the curve and into view. They claim this is proof that it's perspective, and that the Suez Canal is flat from end to end because there is no locks. But it is proof that it is curved end to end, and there is no need to locks because water is pulled by gravity towards the center of mass, which is the center of the Earth. So all water on Earth follows a curve. Simple logic, but they don't understand logic. I could go on and on and on and on with like some of the stupid things that flat earthers believe, but I'm going to leave it at this because this could be a very long video. I only really wanted to debunk this one silly point that proves curve flat, curve flat. It's the same exact lens being used to show that the curved Earth, that's not a fisheye lens, that's a standard lens showing the curved Earth as it is, but it's unobstructed. You look at it obstructed and it looks flat. That is the entire point. Now, if I cut this, 1 second here. That's not really what I want to do. That's what I want to do is where's my crop tool? Sorry, I'm a little. Is that it? No, that's not it. I'm a little blurry-eyed at this point here. Well, point is, I'll do it this way. There we go. So this right here looks like a straight line because it's obstructed. You know, the ship's here, and all you're seeing is a little piece of the curve, so it looks straight. You know, that's if all you saw was, well, that's a lot of the curve, but you know, if you only saw, that's way too pixelated to see, but you get the point. You know, you can hardly tell there's a curve in this tiny, tiny area. That's how they confuse you, is they just they narrow down the angle, so you know you only see a very short, tiny piece of it, and they say, there, look, no curve. You know, this is a I am not. My eyes are way too blurry. Picking all the wrong tools here. But you know what I'm saying. You know, this is looks to be a completely straight line right there. We'll use this tool here. 2 points. And I will zoom in on that here. .2 points, and it looks pretty damn straight. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, see, I mean, it's, but start that over. So there we go. So I mean, it looks exactly straight.